So I am Kat Purcell. I'm the career librarian here at Champaign Public Library. We do one-on-one appointments, resume reviews, practice interviews, anything I can do to help you in your job journey. I'm happy to help for. I like to do what I do because it took me so long to figure out what I wanted to do, so I get to find out a bit about everybody's jobs while I help them with their career path. But today we're going to be talking about finding your best fit work environment with Kevin Martlage. He's here from Nextier Advisors, and he's going to talk about how to scope out what that perfect work environment is. So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks for being here today. Appreciate you coming out on a dreary day outside. But we're going to start out. I just want to kind of get to know you a little bit, and I'll tell you a little about what I do, and then we'll jump into it. But let's just start over here. What's your name? Kind of where are you in your career journey, and what do you hope to kind of gain out of today being here? So,
my name is Melissa, and I currently am the client training lead of a software company.
Oh, wow.
We develop the software in-house.
Okay.
And so I train customers how to use it.
Awesome.
And
Perfect.
my senior leadership has implied, I am currently a team of one.
Mm-hmm.
They have implied that they may be expanding my team.
Oh, wow.
So that could put me in a leadership role.
Absolutely.
But I don't know that that's the direction that I want to be in.
Okay.
So I was looking at other jobs online today, and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I gonna, what opportunities should I go with? And
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at, and I think finding my best fit, what kind of leadership do I want or need, and what kind
Sure.
of leader would I like to be if given the opportunity.
Perfect. I think you'll get a lot out of today, so thanks for being here. Let's go back here.
Hi, my name's Andrew, and I've been teaching math and chemistry for many years at the college level.
Oh, wow.
Currently, I'm working with CNA nurses who want to become LPNs.
Okay.
And math and chemistry are big barriers for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my main thing, but I also thought there may be some pieces from, they're all in transition, always changing jobs.
Sure.
Helping to guide them.
Uh-huh.
This whole idea of best fit is new to me. So
Yeah. Okay.
it's me helping them to get a best fit.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Let's go right over here.
My name is Joanna Watkins, and I am a student. I'm studying, and I have a focus on office and administrative support.
Okay.
I have loads of experience in customer service, and recently I've been wondering if I want to stick with that career field or not.
Okay.
So I'm here to scope out some other things and see what my best fit.
All right.
As
Perfect.
well as leadership opportunities.
Yep, that's awesome. Okay. Well, my name's Kevin Martlage, as we said, and I own a consulting company called Nextier Advisors. And I've been doing this for about 6 years. I spent a majority of my career in corporate America in a nonprofit sector. And I had the opportunity to start this consulting firm about 6 years ago and just focus on helping people understand their full purpose, helping teams work better together. And I do a lot of work with organizations across the country on developing and assessing their work culture that can be both supportive and so forth. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm not an expert. I just have a lot of experience. And so I just want to have a conversation with you today. I got some tools and stuff that we'll go through to help you kind of identify your best fit work environment. But I want this to be kind of a conversation. I don't want it to be just me up here talking to you for an hour. I don't think you'll get much out of that. Yeah, absolutely. That's probably good. So I also use this concept called mirrors and flashlights. My goal today is to help hold a mirror up to you so you can kind of see maybe what values and things that you like to see in a work environment, but also shine that flashlight a little bit on what works and what doesn't work maybe in your past or what you're looking for in the future. So that's kind of where we're going to go today with this conversation. And then, so today we're going to focus on what good looks like regarding an engaging workplace environment. And we're going to help you identify your key values, what you like to see in a teammate, what you like to see in a supervisor, and what is important to you just overall in a work environment. And so we have some tools that we're going to go through with that, that we'll go through today. So I handed out, hopefully you all have a pen. Our goal is to fill this out by the time we leave in the next 55 minutes or so. And so this is your best fit, and we're going to help you kind of identify those important things in all 4 of those quadrants that you can then take back. And you can use that to assess maybe your current work environment, or if you're looking for that new job, it's really important to be able to articulate what you value in an organization, what kind of supervisor you like, what kind of teammate you like. Because as you go in for that job interview, it's just as much you interviewing them as it is them interviewing you for that position. And so I just want to provide some of that awareness for you, okay? So we're going to set the stage real quick. I have this on the left is the importance of shared values, okay? So if you can articulate what you value by looking at your relationships, building trust, communicating, resolving conflict, and then influencing and persuading your teams and the people that you work with, those are all key things that as a leader or as you're looking at a new organization are important. And then we have these 15 traits over here that we'll talk about later on, that if you focus on these 15 traits, it helps you develop high trusting, high accountability, and highly productive teams. And so we're going to dive into those a little bit to see maybe what your top 2 or 3 things are that are important to you. Is it important in a work environment that you have really established boundaries? Expectations are clear. There's consistency. You tell the truth. So what are those things? So we'll kind of go through a format to develop that. And it's all about your personal and team and supervisor awareness. Okay, so you can start to articulate some of this stuff. Okay? So the reason that's important in the middle is because as an organization, you got all those things on the outside that you do. That's the business of what any organization or company does. And those values and all those conversations support all that. Okay? And so why that's important, because as they get new employees, new opportunities, new roles, new divisions, new leadership, those core values always stay true. And it's the same as you go to start look at a new job or a new career, or you want to do something different, right? And so for you guys today, we're going to focus on out here, what are those new career opportunities that can support those things? If you're preparing for a new job or you're helping somebody else understand their personal growth, it's some things that you're going to be able to take into that conversation, okay? So today's workshop, we're going to talk about these 4 conversations in the middle, and that, I have a saying, it's called awareness grants you choice. If I can bring awareness around some of these things to you guys, you then have a choice as to what you do with those things. And the goal is it's going to help you develop your personal impact, your strategic support, structure, and sustainability that'll allow you to be aligned with that new job and go into a new job or your current job in a way that you're going to be aligned with some of those things. Okay? Any questions? That's the most I'm going to probably talk today. So we're going to talk about the importance of trust. Okay? Trust to me is something that is it's like the X factor of any relationship, of any organization. No matter if you're new to that company or you're new to a different career path, you have to start building trust from the very beginning. Okay? And so I want to start out by, where is your trust? Okay? Because trust, I hope, is one of those values that we kind of talk about. And so when I say the word trust, what are some things that break trust for you?
I think follow through. So
Follow
you're going
through.
to do something and then do it.
Okay, that's
If
important.
you don't, then you were the one that failed to execute.
Mm-hmm.
Without communicating that you were going to fail to execute,
Exactly.
then you lose the trust.
Absolutely. That can tank trust right from the beginning. Yep. Any other thoughts? What are some deal breakers for trust?
Well, for me, a lot of it is just noticing how they treat other people,
Mm-hmm.
how they interact with them, and if they're putting them down or mistreating them in any ways, that sort of starts to undermine this. Because trust is based on you sort of respecting their values, I guess, in a way.
Absolutely.
And that demonstrates that they don't have the value.
Yeah. Or maybe they have values that are different than yours, right?
Yeah.
And then if I don't understand that that's something of value to you, I may not be able to support it properly, right? And there could be impact the trust that we weren't intending even,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Any other thoughts or
I was gonna say disrespect, but you kind of.
disrespect? Yeah. It goes back to some of those 15 traits over there on the side too that we talk about, that can drive trust or break trust too. So it's easy to say, well, the opposite of that is what drives trust or develops trust, but what are some deal makers for your trust? What are some other things that you're like, hey, when that happens, trust just goes through the roof. It can build trust.
I think setting the right expectations is the inverse of before, where even if you mention or tell somebody that something's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and then it doesn't end up happening,
Yeah,
the issue of breaking trust is by not having that in-between communication.
sure. Yeah.
So you may be able to say, hey, we're going to make this initiative next quarter,
Mm-hmm.
and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
You get to the end of the quarter and you're like, hey, I thought we were gonna have this thing.
yeah.
If somewhere in the middle of the quarter, they're like, hey, this is the thing that changed,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not going to be able to do the thing, but this is why,
Sure.
then I think that it encourages trust that whomever is making that decision or whatever has potentially fallen through is
Absolutely.
at least communicating it.
Yeah.
That was
That-
what I was thinking too, the why.
Yeah.
Whatever the thing is, the why.
Yeah. The why is so important. That's a key term that you said there. Because a lot of times we may not agree with something, but if we know the why or their reality behind why they made that decision or communicating that, we can understand it. We're aware of it and we have a choice. Are we going to go along with it? Or are we going to push back? Are we going to, just say, I don't like you anymore. I don't trust you, whatever. But you're aware of that. If you don't have that, then you're making up stories in your mind. And it's hard to build trust with somebody, right?
And as she was talking, the role of good communication in all of this, multiple levels, that clarifying the why, understanding the why.
Yeah.
So, I've been in some meetings where there are certain people that just don't make an effort to communicate well.
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
there's assumptions and misunderstandings.
Absolutely. And it goes back to that model I showed you before. That's one of the key things, communication, right? You have to intentionally communicate, and that really supports your values, then, right? So let's talk about, did you have any kind of deal makers or trust? What helps drive trust for you?
Like consistency,
Yeah.
and even like depending confidentiality maybe.
Okay, perfect. So you can probably all think about, you don't have to tell me a situation where you felt like, hey, there's just a high level of trust, right? Maybe an interaction you had, or, hey, I've got a friend that there's just a high level of trust, right? So maybe kind of think about those things. And so there's a saying, it says, trust is said to come in on foot and out on horseback. I mean, it takes a long time to build trust with somebody, but as soon as one of those things happens, that's maybe a trust breaker, it drops, right? And so a key value that I feel like all of us should have, and I think it's very important because I've seen through my career where it's really impacting, is trust is so important with things, okay? That's why I kind of start with talking with trust. And so I have a model I'm just going to use to illustrate this. So over time, you build trust with somebody. There's different things that happen, right, in any relationship. And at some point, you're going to say, okay, I trust that person, right? You could say, I trust them for whatever reason. And then there's going to be some kind of conflict that comes up, and that trust is going to tank. It's going to be like, okay, I don't trust that person anymore. Something has impacted this trust that we have, right? So my goal with understanding your values and all of this stuff, and some of the other work that we do that we won't get into today, is that we want to intentionally build trust over time. Okay? We want to go in and we want to set clear expectations with somebody. We want to tell them, hey, this is what consistency looks like to me. What's it look like to you? This is how I communicate. Does that work for you? This is the environment or culture that I'm trying to develop as a leader. Here's how you can impact that. Here's how I can help you be supportive in that. And if we intentionally build trust, when that conflict happens, it's still going to impact our trust level with that person, but not as significantly, because we're going to be on the same page intentionally to begin with. And, oh, by the way, once that conflict happens, we can now build trust at a higher rate because we've been on the same page from the beginning. So that's kind of just a little background, just using trust as an example, that I want to, by being here today, I want to intentionally approach all the things that you're here to try to achieve by giving you some awareness around your values, your supervisors, your teammates, and your work culture, so you can intentionally build trust with somebody by letting them know, this is what's important to me, right? Or even looking at a job opportunity that says, hey, that can check that box for me. I'm going to be engaged in that opportunity, in that career, whatever it might be. Okay? There's some things in trusting culture around communication. If you have low communication, to your point back there, versus frequent and open communication, you have a high level of trust. If you resist conflict or you meet it head on, high level of trust. If you hoard or hide resources versus you share, high level of trust. So you can kind of look at some of the key things in terms of problem solving and just giving people the benefit of the doubt that can help drive trust. Okay? And you can probably think about current or future work environments that you probably were in some place along that line in each of those things. Right? So has there ever been anybody in a situation where you're trying to solve a problem and you have that hero? Oh, I know how to do this. I'm going to go and solve that problem for everybody instead of being very collaborative. And then maybe when the result comes out, you're like, well, you didn't think about this. You didn't think about that. So maybe I don't trust you as much as I would have if we would have come together to solve that problem. Okay? Just a little context before we jump into the values and things. So anybody have any questions on any of that? Does it kind of make sense as a baseline to start our conversation around values?
So the conflict on this timeline here, so I've seen where conflict happens and it kind of, if it's not handled right, it kind of can break the whole trust, break the whole relationship, really.
Sure, absolutely.
So that's kind of a key piece on the timeline. Maybe that's what you were saying, is that, so, and my wife and I talk about this, we've been married a long time, but as we grew up, we were, first of all, we never even acknowledged if there was conflict in our family. It was kind of like, you know, sex, religion, and money, you never talk about anything, you know. And so we didn't acknowledge it, but if there ever was conflict, there was no teaching on how you kind of work through it positively.
Sure, absolutely.
So that's kind of almost a whole separate topic, isn't
It absolutely is. And I could talk for 6 days on conflict resolution, but that's a great point, because if you're intentionally building that relationship, take trust out of this, you're intentionally building that relationship, and you maybe said to your wife or your colleague, hey, it's really important to me that if we disagree, we stop what we're doing and we take care of it right then and there. You're providing awareness that now grants that person choice. So if we have a disagreement, they're like, oh, I know that he likes to address it right away. I'm going to make an effort to try to do that. You're going to build trust, right? Or they could say, I know you like to address things right away, but now is not the right time. Let's come back in a week and talk about that. Or let's see how it goes and then we'll talk about it, whatever. But you're now intentionally communicating with that person, and you're aware of what they value, right?
So your approach to it depends on you knowing something about what method they prefer. Kind of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it starts with yourself.
Yeah.
All the career coaching I do and so forth, it all talks about your personal awareness. What's important to you? How do you articulate that? You know, what do you value? I value making a good living and having a good, work-life balance. Okay, is that job going to allow me to have that? Right? Whatever it might be for you.
So on that next slide, so on that positive regard one, what do you mean by mischievous?
Okay, so I have a saying or a concept called mischief, where it's your perception and realities are not aligned. Okay, so I'm going to go in, let's take just a business scenario. I'm going to approach that job to the best of my ability. I'm not here to screw people over or to make the company lose money or anything like that. but I'm going at it in a positive manner. I'm trying to do the best I can. That may be perceived by somebody else as, no, Kevin, maybe I make a decision, they don't understand the why. Well, Kevin's trying to undermine me. No, I'm not. I just made a decision. I didn't realize it was that important to you. Now that I do, let me bring you on board as to why I made that decision. And I call that mischief. It's things that we do that we're unaware of that other people perceive in a different manner, right? But if I give people the benefit of the doubt, and in that case, the person says, hey, I don't understand why Kevin made that decision, but I know he means the best he can. Maybe I need to go talk to him, right? Then I'm giving people a positive regard and benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to go and talk to them. Hey, that decision didn't sit right with me. Help me understand a little bit more. What was behind that? Still may not like it, but I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. Okay? Mischief's another concept that we can talk about another day, but that's it's kind of the basis of some of that conflict resolution.
But then also getting people to address if they do have questions, wouldn't that help to strengthen communication?
It would be, yep. Yep. And you gotta have a lot of trust for somebody to feel comfortable to come, ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved out to New York and took over the job I had over there, I was a kid from the Midwest. I was scared to go talk to some people that were these executives or whatever, right? But once I set that expectation with them and said, hey, I don't know if I feel comfortable going into this is vice president's office to tell you about something I don't agree with, but I know I need to do that. We set that baseline, and that way he or she knew then that was what I valued, that, hey, that was something I was working on, and they may address it a little bit differently, right? That's where trust comes in, right?
Something that I struggle with currently is trusting an organization to make good business decisions versus trusting the individuals that you're working with.
Sure.
I had a team meeting this morning, and our senior vice president of my department said, I'm probably being too transparent, you guys, but here's a bunch of information.
Yeah.
And I fully believe him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've worked with him, and I do believe, because what he has said in the past has not always been good news, but it has been accurate.
Sure.
However, what he says
Mm-hmm.
is indicative that the organization is not necessarily making good business decisions.
Sure.
Or, as a whole, they're not communicating
Mm-hmm.
with the folks that are being impacted by those decisions.
Yep.
And so I think that there's kind of a couple of layers in terms of decision-making.
Mm-hmm.
Do we love the people that we work with? That's great.
Yeah.
But we also frequently can't stand the company we work for.
Absolutely. Those are two very different things, right?
Good point.
Yep. Two very different things. And a lot of times what happens is you'll work with your teammates that you feel really comfortable with and you enjoy working with, and you're like, y'all kind of get together. And that's where mischief comes into play. You're like, they don't know what's going on. They're making bad decisions. And that starts to consume you a little bit, that you're thinking about that, when in fact, they know it's a tough decision, but they just didn't communicate the why, right? And they may communicate the why. If they would have just communicated the why and been even more transparent at a higher level, may not like it, but at least then you understand, okay, I have a decision now. I understand why you made a decision. That's not in line with my values and where I want to go. I'm going to go find another job, right? Or you know what? Now I understand. I can get on board with that and not worry about what else is going on, right?
And this value thing that I thought about that it's the person or the team or the supervisor you're working with. But I recently was working with a couple of superiors, and it was the policy of the institution that they didn't agree with, but they still had to enforce that impacted their behavior with me. So one of them explained that very well, and I was initially thinking they were just being kind of obtuse or mean or something.
Sure, yeah.
But they had this other, so that's important, those two levels.
Mm-hmm. But it's that awareness around it,
Yeah.
and that's where those flashlight and mirrors come up.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times if you're talking with your teammates and you're starting to make up these mischief type stories, right? Sometimes as a consultant or a leader, I need to, hold that mirror up and say, hey, I know you maybe don't understand that, but you realize that you're negatively impacting this now as well. And why don't you go talk to that supervisor? Well, I don't feel comfortable telling them I don't like their business decisions. Okay, then you have a choice. Either get on board or you go address it, and you find a solution, right? Great conversation. Maybe next time I should talk about mischief as part of that, but I'd be happy to talk afterwards too.
I like it when you talk about mischief.
Yeah. So we're going to start out. I have some worksheets. So I have a strategic partner over in Indianapolis, a good friend of mine, that came up with a thing called life mapping. And what life mapping is, it helps, it's like a 10-step process you go through that helps people identify their full life purpose. If you'd be interested in learning more, I can talk to you afterwards. But there's 3 pieces in that framework that I think are important as you start to look at what your best fit work environment is. And it starts with your teammates, who you're working with, right? So what I want you to do is we want to say what we are for desire instead of what we don't want in a teammate. But we're going to start by trying to identify 5 attributes or behaviors that are most difficult for you to experience in a peer or teammate. Okay? So on that list, you have a list of kind of negative attributes that could come into play when you're interacting with a teammate or a coworker, in this case, if you're looking at that. So I want you to go through and just put a check mark next to all the things that you're like, yep, I can't. That just shuts me down when that happens. That is just something that it's hard for me to get over, and I'm not productive when that is in place when I'm working with somebody. So when you go through and take just a minute or so and just put a quick check mark next to all the areas that you think are those negative things, the pain points, if you will. You can circle them or check mark them. Do you have a pen? I'm going to go through it there.
I'll probably do mine a little later,
Okay, that's fine.
but I'm still here.
Yeah. You can take that with you.
So on this whole list we're looking?
Yeah, look through that just on that first page for
Okay.
teammates, okay? Those things that are pain points or negative things that just shut you down in terms of your interaction with a coworker or a teammate. You don't have to use specific names. We're not writing any of that down, but just think about those instances where that really just shuts you down. And if there's something else that maybe is on the list that you can think of, go ahead and write that down at the bottom too. Did you want one? Maybe another couple minutes. As you're going down through that, the goal with this is to, I hate being negative, but if we think first about the things that turn us off or shut us down when it comes to working with a teammate, I want you to then think about those, maybe group them if you have more than a few, and I want you to come up with the positive opposite of that negative attribute or behavior. So for instance, if you're like, I don't like it if if a teammate is very rigid in their ways. Okay, so what's the opposite of rigid? Maybe collaborative, right? Something that they at least understand maybe different perspectives, right? So I'm really good at that attribute I'm looking for in a teammate is somebody that, maybe is set in their ways, but they also are very aware that maybe, hey, there's other options or ways of doing things. Okay. So you start with the negative and you're trying to identify the positive opposite. And the goal is you're going to come up with maybe 3 to 5 of these positive attributes of a teammate. Seconds here. Kind of. This is the part if you don't feel comfortable sharing, you don't have to, but does anybody have an example that they'd like to share? Maybe what the negative pain point was and then what's your positive opposite that you came up with? Okay.
I had hypocritical.
Okay.
Working in learning and development, my general goal is that people are learning and developing.
Uh-huh.
And this person that I was working with said that she also agreed, she's in a senior level position,
Mm-hmm.
but then the work that was produced later on was very much of a let's check boxes.
Okay.
And so when applying like rational thinking, like,
Sure.
well, no, this thing is not actually gonna benefit people's learning and development,
Mm-hmm.
but you needed to check a box because somebody told you that you needed to check a box.
Sure. Yeah.
I have some empathy, being in a senior position, you're
Mhm.
often told to just do things and check boxes.
Yeah.
But also some behavior behind that was,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm really proud that I produced this thing,
Yeah.
when I'm like, there is no evidence to support that this accomplishes the goal that you and I agreed that we had in the first place.
Sure. So what's the opposite of that then? Like what trait are you looking for in that situation?
I think it's really honesty.
Okay.
And if this person would have said, you know what, I also
Mm-hmm.
do not understand why senior leadership is deciding to take this point.
Sure.
But we have these deliverables, we're gonna make these deliverables.
Mm-hmm.
Then I could be like, you know what, I
Mhm.
lean on the empathy more, like, man, I'm really sorry that you are in a position where you have to produce stuff that you're not really exactly happy for or
Yeah.
proud of.
Yeah. But you're really looking for that trait in a teammate that's very honest.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily, hey, I got to check a box. We're all here because we have expectations. But they're very honest about how they go and do that. Right? That's
Or
a
at
key
least
thing.
recognize the thing that
Yeah.
we made isn't gonna fulfill the thing that we want it to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So be very open-minded as well.
Yes.
Right? Great example. Did you have one back there you want to share?
Yeah, well, I checked several, but, and I appreciate when someone starts out with the negativity, there's a part of me that reacts, but I hadn't thought of it the way, I like the word springboard.
Mm-hmm.
The negativity is like a springboard to,
Yeah.
and I'm a contrast compare learner, so this is
Oh,
especially
perfect.
effective
Yeah.
for me. So I had, they kind of are related, controlling, loudmouth, and ruthless in that first column.
Yeah.
And so I kind of thought of that as overall obnoxious, but
Mhm.
it prompted a couple words like flexibility, good listener, gracious, gentle, kind of in contrast to some of those.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's an interesting exercise.
Yeah. Well, I think it's easy to talk about the negatives, even though we probably shouldn't. It's easy to say, gosh, that just bugged me, that bugged me, that bugged me.
It is, yeah.
So that's why we start there, and
Yeah.
then let's go with the opposite.
Yeah.
So what I'd like for you to do is, on that other sheet I gave you when you came in, there's the the teammate section, bottom left-hand corner. You don't have to do it now, we'll go on to the supervisor, but I'd encourage you to go back and come up with like 3 to 5 attributes or traits that you want to see in your teammate by going through that exercise. Okay? You can take a minute to do that. I just want to make sure we get to all the stuff here today that we have to talk about. So the next one that we're going to go through is, if you go to the next page, is your supervisor, right? What type of supervisor encourages you or engages you the best that you can? So there's research that show between 60 and 85% of employees leave their job because they have a bad boss, right? Or even they don't trust the decisions that that boss may be making, right? So we want to say what we are for desire instead of what we don't want in a boss, supervisor, or a team leader. And so it's the same thing. You're going to go through here, and these are the negative attributes of a supervisor that could be in play in your current role, in a past role, whatever it might be. So you're going to identify all of those and then come up with a positive opposite of that. So the same exercise as we had with the teammate. So I'll give you a couple minutes to kind of go through that. These start to get really interesting as you look at some of those things, because as I go through it, I'm like, I had a boss that did that. I had a boss that did that. Hey, I do that. You know what I mean? And so again, we're just trying to identify some awareness around what really helps us be encouraged and engaged from a supervisory standpoint.
I think it's interesting, a lot of these being more structural, organizational issues and less behavioral.
Yeah?
For example, no sense of organizational goals, plans, or priorities.
Mm-hmm.
If the organization doesn't have those established, then the manager or the supervisor can't provide them to the people where they're leading.
Sure.
So
So that's a very interesting point. So as you're trying to look at, if you go, say, in a job interview and you're talking to that supervisor and they ask that question, what kind of questions do you have for me? It could be, tell me how this organization is structured and how you deliver the mission or vision or strategic direction of this organization. Because that's very important to me, that I not only know my roles and responsibilities, but that as decisions are made, it can be tied back to a purpose and what we're doing, right? So that's a great example. And a lot of times, it was in my career too, there was times where I felt like I was doing some of these things, but it was because of the organization and not necessarily, I knew in my heart that I shouldn't be doing that. But it's like, what do you want me to do? Right? So that's a very insightful thing that you saw there. So that's why our employees too, because we use a lot of these things too to go in and assess the current culture of organizations. And a lot of times the root cause is, yeah, there's that positive regard for people, but maybe the supervisor is in a bad spot. And they're having to carry out things that they don't agree with. That's why values and all this is so important, right? Kind of an underlying goal with all this is not only provide you awareness, but I want you guys to be able to find and work in environments that you encourage you. So you're not like me and 30 years later, you're finally doing what you've always wanted to do, right? Because we've all been in that situation where we're kind of stuck. Well, what are my other options, right? I'm not happy, but I don't know what's making me unhappy, right? And I've done a lot of career coaching with people where they go and find another job and it's the same thing, right? It's like, well, you just went to a different location, but you still have the same issues that you're trying to go over, you're trying to overcome, right? Any examples on the supervisor in terms of the positive opposite? That one may go back to your first one with the teammate too, being very transparent that you talked about at the beginning. It's okay to be transparent, but understand that why, right? So how can they as a supervisor, help me, bring me along, right?
I think one of the most valuable things for me is just being real.
Mm-hmm.
I had, very young in my first job, I was working in customer service, actually in a call center. And the supervisor knew, like, this isn't the career for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
This is a stepping stone.
Sure.
And so he treated people accordingly, knowing that if you push too hard sometimes, people will leave because this isn't their dream job.
Mm-hmm.
But if you respect them as adult human beings,
Yeah.
then this, You'll be here as long as you need to be here,
Sure.
but,
Mhm.
yeah. so
Absolutely. But that was that awareness around that, and I don't know how they got to that or understood that about everybody, but that was important for that leader, right? And I've had people that have worked for me when I was with FedEx for 15 years. I had a couple guys that worked for me that they were near retirement. And we do all this development and professional training and leadership training, and they finally came to me and goes, I have no desire to get promoted over what I'm doing now.
Right.
I'm like, great, I understand that. Still got to do a great job here, but I understand that. There's going to be things you have to do that are company directives for leadership training, but I'm not going to push you anymore, right? But if that ever changes, you come and talk to me, right? Perfect. So the goal being on here is now you'll write in that supervisor quadrant kind of those traits that you're looking for in a supervisor. Okay? The last, I want us to be one aware of time as we're going through this, and I can stay as long as we need to afterwards if we need to, but I want to introduce you to two more aspects that we'll go through. So personal values is that center part. In an organization, they have maybe values, core values that they stand for, but these are your personal values. And in this one, it gets to those point, what are those values if they're present, you will thrive? And if these values are not present, you would struggle, right? So this isn't finding the negative one, but this is more of what do you value in terms of your career, you personally, whatever it might be, that you're trying to, that would help you thrive in any situation, what you stand for, so to speak. So you can kind of go through that. We'll be brief here in just a second. And these are things that matter to you, but it's also 9 times out of 10, if it matters to me that I have a high level of integrity, I'm going to want that in the organization I work with or the people that I'm around, right? So there could be some overlap between these values. And we get really engaged by people that have similar values to us, right? From a personal standpoint. And there's a few on the back of that page too. What do you value in a work culture? Just in general. One of the best questions I like is you go to interview for somebody is tell me what a typical day looks like. Tell me what your team meeting looks like every week that you go to. Right? Tell me about your annual review process. What do those look like? Oh, you don't have one? Okay. How do I know that I'm doing a good job? Because that's really valuable to me that I understand the impact I'm making. All right.
So if you wanted to know what impact you're making, what value would that be?
I think it's a lot of transparency and truth would be a couple that are in there. Open communication, right? I don't care if it's good or bad. I want to know about it because if I don't know about it, I'm just going to assume I'm doing a good job, right? How many times you get to maybe an annual review that you have and something gets brought up and you're like, I wish you would have told me I was doing that 6 months ago because I would have changed, right? So open communication would be a key one that would fall into that.
When I look at this list and the previous one, I'm seeing there's 3 or 4 on this list: openness, respect, affection, or kindness. I'm thinking that it's how they interact with the employees and colleagues.
Sure.
And part of it's openness, part of it's feedback, part of it's the communication we've been talking about. But and if it's sort of overpowering and controlling versus flexibility and listening, that's I think foundational to a lot of this for me.
Sure.
Because if you just when I was a college teacher, we did a lot on getting anonymous feedback, and you would find out things that you had no clue about.
Yeah.
You know, students would talk about something irritating in the environment that was preventing them from
Mhm.
learning.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't say it to your face, so this was anonymous. And you'd
Mhm.
say, wow, I never thought of that. And sometimes easily resolved.
Sure.
And it's the same thing on your performance, you know, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Having them come in periodically,
Mhm.
and what are you frustrated with, and so,
Mhm.
so.
Absolutely. Yep. For me, it's somebody that's very open to feedback themselves. I want to receive the feedback about me, but I want to have that trusting relationship where if there's something I don't agree with, I want to be able to come talk to you without feeling like you're going to fire me,
Yeah.
right? And so I have 3 things when I was managing teams of individuals. I have communication, execution, and trust, right? And I would tell people that on day one, this is what I stand for, this is what I'm about. If I'm ever not communicating, you come tell me. If I ever feel like you can't trust me, you come tell me. If you ever feel like you can't execute on something because you don't know the why or how, you got to come talk to me. So I set that expectation at the beginning, right? And that way they could come talk to me. Now, I couldn't get mad when they did that, right? But it would open that door for those things. So hopefully you can come up with 4 or 5 values that are important to you that you can also fit on that. Okay? The last piece is when we talk about your best fit environment, what environment encourages you? So you got the things about your team interaction, your supervisor interaction, what you value. But the last is these 15 traits that we talked about. And we talked about some of those as we were just having our little discussion today. But these 15 traits have been developed by my father and I over, he's been in the consulting business and worked for Eli Lilly, and my jobs that I've had over the last 30 years. These are 15 traits that if you focus on them, they're a high-performing, high-trust, and highly productive team happens when these things are being focused on. And so these 15, you can't do all of them at the same time, but there's certain things that are important. And we have this thing called the Mischief Index, where you can go in and assess your current culture against these 15 things, and we'll come back with a chart and it'll say, okay, it looks to me like sharing information, telling the truth, and making mistakes is your detractors for your current culture. Here's some things you can do to enhance those things. It's all about intentional communication. It's all about building trust. Maybe you need to look at how you communicate things, whatever it might be. And so there's another sheet I'll hand out here. I'll pass those around. So this one, we usually do it online. But what I'd like for you to do is you can kind of look at each of those things, and I'll put up the definitions here in just a second. But I'd like for you to assign a number to each one regarding how important these are to you personally in your day-to-day work environment. So if you're like, yeah, establishing boundaries, that's important, but it's not a huge priority for me. And they can have the same number on different ones if you want. But you know what? The highest priority for me is that I get feedback and that mistakes are admitted to, right? So you're going to kind of go through and just prioritize those. And if you get to where they're all 10s, I encourage you to look at it a little bit closer. What are your top 3 or 4? But here's the definitions of those. So like, for instance, establish boundaries. That's an environment where roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities are very well defined. That's a priority for me. Managing expectations. There's clarity around what is wanted or needed from each other. Right? Telling the truth. Communication is honest, open, and the real issues get put on the table. Right? If there's conflict, we're addressing it right then and there. Right? Speaks with good purpose. People share their opinions constructively rather than ways that are negative or highly critical. Right? So I encourage you to kind of go through there and just do a prioritization about what's most important to you and what's least important to you, with the goal then you're trying to focus on those top 3 to 5 that are really important for you in a work environment. And this assessment's been developed, like I said, and been used with some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies in the world, all the way down to soccer youth groups, to church groups, to nonprofit organizations. these 15 traits we found are very relevant across no matter what organization you might be in or what kind of environment you might work in. Can also be used to assess your leadership, right? Because if these are important to have in a work business culture, okay, as a leader personally, how am I at sharing information? I feel like I'm pretty good. What would your team say? So we can also use this to not only assess yourself, but then to compare it to, say, your team. What does the 3 or 4 people that report to you say about you? Okay, there's misalignment, there's mischief that could be coming in play. I feel like I'm great at telling the truth. My team feels like I'm not. How do I adjust that? Right? There's a lot of different tools and things you can use it for. So we feel like the most important to you, if you look through that. I know you're going to do this later on, but did you have anything different that you'd like to kind of talk about?
Me?
Or, yeah, is there anyone? I'm sorry, I forgot your name already. But
Sorry.
is there one out there that jumps out to you that like, hey, that would be the most important to me? Did you look through that?
I'm not sure. I think a lot of things are kind of like important to me, but
Mhm.
definitely being able to share information with people.
Okay. For that transparency.
Yeah, I think that's a big one for me, but I've been getting like contrasting, feedback about it. I've been kind of stumped about it, but I would definitely love to be more transparent and, be on the other end, like the giving and receiving end of it. But I know it differs for other people.
Sure.
And sometimes I get the feedback saying that I don't know if maybe that's the best thing to do. So I've been a little stumped lately, as far as my being transparent or so transparent.
Sure.
But I kind of feel like I'm going against myself. By me not doing that, it's putting me more in a bind. So,
Yep.
yeah.
So yeah, it's one thing to be transparent with somebody and say, hey, that's maybe not how I would do it, or give me that feedback. Hey, I don't understand that. Explain it to me a little bit more. Help bring me along as to what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Right? Or verifying with them, are we on the same page here as to what we just went over? Right? If not, let's figure it out now.
Yeah.
Because if we leave out of here and we're not on the same page, it's going to cause mischief.
Well, some
Right.
people just think that you should just know.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no way that I would just know if you don't say. So if
Sure.
I'm asking, I'm asking for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing that.
Transparency with the communication is key. That kind of frames how you communicate. And the other one that stood out to me is empowerment. I kind of like, I don't remember hearing that being discussed at the workplace much in my career. There's a lot on personal growth and professional development and so on, but empowerment kind of frames that in a little different way.
Sure.
And it even helps with these seniors that are near retirement. Well, for the rest of how can you empower them to do a good job? It fits with a lot of different levels of growth on the job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to truly feel empowered, you have to have clear boundaries,
Yeah.
clear expectations,
Yeah, a lot
clear
of
delegation.
evidence, yeah.
It all works together.
Yeah, you could put that at the top of this whole thing. I think it did a lot.
You could. Did you have a couple that stood out for you?
Yeah, I think to your point, there's a lot of like kind of dependencies or like in between these two things. The manage's expectations is important to me because I need to know from a leader what I need to do to be successful. because people are asked to give input on decision-making. Well, if your expectations of me are not achievable
Yeah.
for one reason or another,
Mm-hmm.
then I would like to be a part of the decision-making for those expectations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
And to be involved in decision-making, the key is within their scope of responsibility. There's so many people I've worked with, they're like, I should have been at that table making that decision. Then once I say, well, why do you feel that way? And I go over what decision, the true point, they're like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have been. I understand now. Or they're like, I was like, yeah, absolutely, you should have been. I missed that. I'll bring you in next time, right? So it's really about, are those boundaries and expectations, roles, responsibilities clearly defined and everybody on the same page as to what that means? So I'm not wondering, hey, what's going on in that conference room that I'm not in there making decisions about,
Right.
right? I had an associate, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think about the business impact. My rating was kind of like, all right, so what if we don't establish boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we maybe have some folks that are in a role doing a job that they're not qualified to do.
Absolutely.
Or we have people who are qualified, they're doing other things, and we've just mismanaged our team.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Happens all the time.
Managing expectations, people are gonna drop the ball if the expectation is unachievable or if it isn't clear.
Mm-hmm.
So that was how I kind of prioritize those. If we don't establish boundaries, the job may still get done, it just isn't done as well as we want it to do, or with more
Absolutely.
stress potentially.
Mm-hmm.
We're not setting the expectations correctly,
Yep.
then the job potentially doesn't get done.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for delegation, honoring agreements though, that's, if you say you're gonna do a thing, and then you don't do the thing, and you're in a senior position, then you risk attrition.
Yeah.
People can leave your company because, again, you lose that trust.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So for me, the business impact is what kind of drove my prioritization,
Sure.
and managing expectations and seeking involvement from people who are subject matter experts
Mm-hmm.
in making decisions. Those were highly rated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that just gives you some awareness, and we don't have time to do it today, but I'd be happy to talk to you further about it. I would assess, okay, this is what good looks like for me. If I'm a leader, how would I rate myself on those things? Right? Because I think that's the key thing. It's like, yeah, it's one thing that, hey, I want shares information, it flows to the people who need it in a timely manner. That's so important to me. But I don't do it myself. Right? Or I feel like I do, but my teams are like, man, I'm just in the dark all the time. Okay. So use this to kind of assess your approach to leadership too, or how you approach friendships, or how you approach projects, whatever it might be. Because people also use this just as, project planning and project management, right? How are we going to make sure boundaries are set for this project? How are we going to make sure expectations are met? How are we going to communicate? Blah, 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 blah. Okay? So that should fill out the last quadrant in your best fit chart. And I want to kind of wrap up by one saying thanks for your conversation today. But how is this going to be helpful for you as you look for that next job, that first job? How is it going to be helpful to maybe enhance your current work environment or your current friend environment or your school environment or whatever? And then how can you utilize this to better support your team once you get into those? Okay? So how could this be helpful in your upcoming job interview? Let's say we have a job interview. How would you use this information?
We can use these values to ask questions of them. Like you said,
Sure.
it's an interview for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm.
Right? How could you utilize, your mischief index here? It's like, hey, it's very important that we give feedback. Here's what that means to me. Tell me what the feedback looks like in terms of my performance. Right? I guarantee you, I've had so many people come back to me that have kind of approached interviews that way, that they're like, after they get the job, they hear from the interviewer that said, your self-awareness is what set you apart. from everybody else.
Yeah, I could see
That's
that.
what they're looking
That
for.
would stand out in an interview, because
Mhm.
you see a lot of people who are out of touch with themselves, yeah.
Absolutely. And I've even had people that incorporate some of this stuff into their cover letters, their resumes, right? You can talk about those things, right? This is what's important to me. About your current work environment. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I'd focus on that last piece we did. How can I assess my current work environment across these 15 things? Okay, if these are the negative ones, do my values fit into that I could help change that for somebody? Or is there just a mismatch of what's important to me from a supervisor teammate standpoint? Maybe it's time to look for another job, whatever it might be. Same thing with support your team. If you're in a leadership position, here's how I'm assessing myself. Hey team, assess me on these 15 things, and let's talk about those differences. Okay? What questions do you have?
Is it possible to receive a copy of this slides?
Sure. I can send you either the slides, or I can definitely send you these things too. So yeah, I can send you some of those.
Thank you.
And I think this is going to be recorded on the
Mhm.
library website too, if you need to go back to it.
Yeah, I'd also like the slides, there's some good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any tool that you use to get in and reflect on this,
Mhm.
because you don't always take the time to
Yeah.
pause to do that.
Absolutely.
And I like a lot of the things that you addressed. Just thinking about it. It's pretty cool, and I like that you said that it could be used across different areas,
Mhm.
not just in the workplace, just relationships and team.
Absolutely.
I think this is good for me right now. I'm considering if I were going to apply for a job, what are the kinds of questions I would ask based on these priorities? And one of them is, what are my metrics of success?
Absolutely.
And am I being provided opportunities for development in achieving those?
Mhm.
And then for teammates, how does the team, is team collaboration like encouraged? Or
Sure.
how does the team currently collaborate?
Mhm.
Because if I want teammates who are open to new ideas and they're team players and,
Mhm.
then that's an important direction in the questions that I would ask in an interview.
Absolutely. And it's especially helpful if you get in that interview scenario where you're not only talking to the hiring manager, but maybe there's a panel interview with some of the team. You can ask some of those questions. That's really cool if you can get to that point, right? Especially some higher level positions, they will do that, right?
But I feel like will be that much more confident just knowing all of these things ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
What to look for, what to ask, and also what to, embody within myself.
Sure, absolutely. Yep. There's something we do called the 4 Ws, and I can send this to you. I've got some business cards up here. And also for attending, if you want to scan that, you can have a free kind of 30-minute follow-up with me. I'm happy to schedule that with you. We could do it via Zoom, or I can meet here at the library, whatever it might be. But I'd be happy to talk about any other questions or walk through any of this stuff. But that's there if you'd be interested in that as well. So. Any other questions?
No, this was really valuable. I'm really glad that I didn't have it on the calendar, but I was like, I think there was a thing at the library I wanted to go to, and so I'm glad I get it out of the house, so.
Yeah.
And I think you made a point earlier as well about, the things that you're identifying in other people, you don't necessarily excel at. For me, I'm seeing a lot of that where, follow through is really important for me from other people, but, I recognize areas of opportunity for me to follow through on things and communicate better. So it was good for self-reflecting as well.
Absolutely.
Well, and a follow-through would be also an opportunity for clarification on something, because we all misunderstand or didn't hear things right, or so that follow-through is an opportunity for that.
Yeah. And it's tough to talk about yourself too. And hopefully this can give you some things. I was talking earlier about, I went to something else, but the 4 Ws. We do career coaching, like who are you? what's important to you, what kind of work environment you want to live in, like putting some structure around that. So when people ask you, what do you stand for, you can talk about it. And you can have examples of where that worked and didn't work. Right? That's kind of the next level of some of this stuff, but it starts with identifying your own self-awareness and then put some language around that so you can talk about it. It's tough to talk about yourself, especially in an interview when you're nervous, you're like, there's all kinds of emotions going on. You want to get to that point where it's just, this is what I'm about. I'm about communication, execution, and trust. This is what that means, right? So.
And when they ask you what are your strengths,
Yeah.
you hear of a lot of people in the interview, oh, you know, I don't like to talk about
Yeah.
myself, I'm embarrassed. Well, these, you know, you've given so many subcategories here,
Mhm.
you could prepare that ahead of time
Yeah.
without bragging, you're
Mhm.
just being honest.
Yeah. And then I skipped over this, but if you want to reach out to me, some of those files were made up from that strategic partner at Wayfinders in Indianapolis. That's where the teammate, supervisor, and value stuff came from. They have an entire process, if you're interested. It helps you identify what are your transferable skills. What do you bring to the table, right? What's important to you? What's your X factors? Where do you want to grow, right? Where do you want to live? What kind of salary you want to make? There's all these conversations that we have that help outline your life map that just provides awareness for you, right? So that's there. If you're interested, I can connect you with those guys. I can go through it with you too, but it's not a sales pitch, but that's where some of this stuff came from. I'd be happy to connect you with those people if you want. There's my website and contact information, but feel free to reach out to me. I have old school business cards too, if you'd rather have that. I know people don't do business
Yeah,
cards
I'd like
anymore.
the business card.
What do I do with them? Oh, there they are. Yeah. Thanks.
Or I can just hand them out.
Yeah. But thank you so much, and please, I'm here to help support you even after today. So if there's anything I can help you with, or you want to have another question, or want to go through, I'd be happy to do that with you. So I appreciate you coming out, and hope to see you at another one that we're doing.
So if we want your slide, should we just?
Shoot me an email. Yeah, if you don't mind, shoot me an email.
All right.
That'd be great, and then
All right.
I can get those to you. So.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. I
Yeah,
really appreciate
thank
it.
you.
I've had Kevin in several times, and every time I'm thankful for him because I learned something new again. So thanks for coming again. And if you like it, so yes, our next one's December 18th.
Yep.
And it is going to be kind of continuing on for that. So if you've decided we've got to embrace that career change, that's the topic for December, embracing that career change. So, so thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks.